Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of In Trouble with True Crime Sisters. We are two sisters. One does the hard work of research and writing, while the other one does all the boring stuff like recording, like me. We've made another type of episode that you can find on our channel. It's called Killing for Money, and it's about people who killed for money and life insurance. As this episode is a lot longer than our normal episodes, we decided to split it up. So if you don't have time for a long episode, you can listen to the main parts of the episode as 3 separate episodes. Like always, please be warned, this is about true crime, and this is a real case of people being killed by poison. If this is not for you, you can pick another episode. So let's begin. Today we're talking about Amy Archer Gillian, who is suspected of killing over 40 people. And not only did she kill for life insurance money, and she wanted everything, not just money. She wanted things like the pension or the property as well. So Amy was born as Amy E. Duggan on the 31st of April in 1873. Her parents were James Duggan and Mary Kennedy. She was born in Milton, Connecticut. She was born as number 8 out of 10 kids. This is very little confirmed information about her family, but it's mentioned that there was a history of mental illness in her family, and went to New Britain Normal School. In 1897, she married James Archer and took his last name. Amy and James had their first child in 1897 and named her Mary J. Archer. Amy and James started their careers as caretakers in 1901. They were hired to take care of John Seymour as live-in caretakers at Mr. Seymour's house. Mr. Seymour was an old widower living in Newington, Connecticut. I'm sorry if I'm butchering a lot of names, but English is not my first language, so bear with me. There is nothing mentioned during this time that would make us suspect that there was any neglect during their time with Mr. Seymour. However, he died in 1904. His family then decided to let them use the house to take care of the elderly. The family paid them a salary, of course, to take care of the elders, and Amy and James had to pay rent to stay in the house. In 1907, the couple had to find new jobs, packed up the family and moved. Mr. Seymour's family decided to sell the house and close the boarding house. They had saved up money and moved to Windors, where they bought a new home. They also decided to convert his house to a nursing home and named it Archer's Home for the Elderly and Infirm. Sadly for Amy, tragedy struck the family in 1910. James died suddenly, put down to Bright disease. A fancy name for kidney disease. It also sounds like natural causes and no foul play. But luckily for Amy, she did have life insurance and was able to keep the nursing home after the tragic incident. But Amy was not the type to stay sad, so 3 years later she got married to her second husband. His name was Michael W. Gillian. He was a widower with 4 adult sons. He was well off and not only interested in Amy, but he also wanted to invest in the nursing home, and Amy was happy to let him. But Amy seemed to be very unlucky in love. Just 3 months after they got married, Michael died of acute bilious attack, another fancy word for serious indigestion. But Amy, again, was lucky. She had taken out a life insurance policy, then she received, as well as she inherited everything when he died. At this point, I am getting a little suspicious. but we'll get to that later on. But let's look at her career as a caregiver to the poor people who paid to be taken care of. One of the main men who lived in the house was Franklin R. Andrews. One day he was working in the garden and everything was fine. Then, by the afternoon, he was dead. The 61-year-old seemed to be doing well and fit for his age, but he got sick very fast and he died in just a few hours. Gastric ulcer. After his death, all his belongings went to the family, found some letters and saw that Amy was pressing Mr. Andrews for money. It was just a short time before he died that he had given Amy $1,000. It was later noticed that there was a pattern with the residents that lived there. After they had paid Amy, they ended up dead. She also had a few ways for her residents to make their payments. There was fixed weekly fee of between $7 and $25, or they could make a one-time payment of $1,000. That is $1,000 for a place to live and food for the rest of their lives. Imagine you are 50 years old and you could pay $1,000 and live and eat for free for the rest of your lives. It seems too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, it was. If it was me, as soon as I had the money, they would just take up space, and there would be no way of getting more money from them. But enough of that. If the people didn't have the money, then they could pay in other ways, like signing over property or other source of money like pension. And when she had an available room, she would use the newspapers to place an ad to find another prospect. Mr. Anders' sister, Nellie Pierce, reported to the district attorney, but the report was not taken seriously. She went to the press and to the Hartford Courant. In May 1916, they printed the first article about the murder factory. Even after all of this, the police still waited a few months before starting their investigation. When they finally started, they spent an entire year investigating, between 1907 and 1917. So over 10 years period, there was 60 deaths in that house. Between 1907 and 1910, it was not too many, considering that some of these were elderly people. During the 3-year period, there were 12 registered deaths between 1911 and 1916. So this is a 6-year period. 48 people died at the home. Now there is no excuse for this number. Only space for 12 to 14 people. During the police investigation, 5 bodies exhumed: Michael Gillian, his second husband, and Mr. Andrews, who died after a day of gardening. There was also another 3 bodies tested, and all of them had poison in their system. They had all been killed with arsenic or strychnine. A local merchant testified in court that Amy had bought loads of arsenic to kill rats. During this investigation, they also decided to check the will of her second husband. It was forged. The handwriting belonged to Amy. In 1924, she was declared temporarily insane and transferred to Connecticut Hospital for the Insane in Middleton. This is where she lived till she died in April 1962. Amy was only after money. We don't know if she picked her profession to take an advantage of people, or if she realized during her work or after her first husband died that she could make a lot of money this way. There are no accounts of her spending a lot of money, so we don't know what she spent the money on, but she wanted them regardless of anything. Thank you all for listening, and make sure to listen to the full episode on Killing for Money. See you next time. Bye.